let's get on with today's video. Hi guys, my name is Overrated Gaming here, and welcome back to another video. If you like this shirt, if you like the shirt, it's unironed. I got it from H&M, I think. But if you like this video and you want to see more stuff, of course you know what to do. Leave a like, comment and subscribe. I'll also love to hear your feedback. Follow me on my social medias. They will be linked, well, they will be down in the description below, so you know what to follow me on. However, today is a special kind of video. It's a bit different. It is another wrestling video, but it's more of a personal one. So if you don't know, I am on TikTok because I was supremely bored and I needed a way to spend my time. So I started making TikTok videos, and I got followed by another YouTuber which goes by the name of Heel Hugs. And he asked everybody on TikTok, what was your first pro wrestling memory? And for me, it was growing up. I was about 4 at the time, and I went to Leicester to see my family, and my cousin brought out his Xbox and we played SmackDown Shut Your Mouth. And I remember that because, I remember that because I was able to play as Spider-Man and David Beckham in that game because you had the skins for him. And I think he had a Spider-Man entrance as well, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, that was my earliest moment of memory of pro wrestling, and then it wasn't about till WrestleMania 22. I remember the match between Rey Mysterio, Randy Orton and Kurt Angle for the World Heavyweight Championship. That was my first wrestling match I ever watched. But mostly I got, my wrestling kind of taste from the games first. SmackDown Here Comes the Pain, Shut Your Mouth, SmackDown vs Raw, and then the SmackDown vs Raw series. So this video is kind of a bit of a taster of that, but it's basically to share with you guys what it was like for me growing up in wrestling. So I hope you enjoy. So obviously, the year I was born in 1998, so I was basically born in the middle of the Monday Night Wars. So for me, I missed that period in time. I missed the invasion. I missed the new generation era, Hulk Hogan and Bret the Hitman Hart and all those guys. I missed the boom period of The Rock versus Stone Cold. I had to watch that later on. I missed Kurt Angle, early Kurt Angle. I missed the boom of The Undertaker. I missed Chris Jericho's debut. I missed a lot of things, a lot of important things in the wrestling world today that were synonymous for the Attitude Era and stuff. So I kind of started wrestling right slap bang in the middle of the Ruthless Aggression era. So again, like I said before, I grew up on the games. So Shut Your Mouth, Here Comes the Pain, and that kind of thing. I knew a lot of the wrestlers from the game. So Rey Mysterio, Ultimo Dragon, which was on Here Comes the Pain. Who else did we use? Goldberg we used Triple H, Brock Lesnar. Again, I knew those characters from the game. But when it came to actually watching wrestling again, like I said, it was WrestleMania 22. That was the first match I watched, the triple threat match for the World Heavyweight Championship, which Rey Mysterio eventually won, and that became my favourite wrestler. Rey Mysterio was then my favourite wrestler. It helped as well that my little brother was a huge wrestling fan, and his mum as well. His mum was a huge wrestling fan. So she tried to keep up with stuff on Sky Sports. Obviously, back then you had to buy pay-per-views. So sometimes you didn't have the money to pay for everything. So again, I'd kind of watch snippets of wrestling here and there. But for me, when wrestling started to kick into gear, was TNA. I was a TNA kid from growing up. Okay, I know, and the main reason for that was because back then you only had about 5 channels on TV. And if you had money, then you could afford Sky. So whenever I used to go to my dad's, we'd have the Sky box. And on Bravo, as it was called at the time, TNA Impact were there. So that's when I knew guys like AJ Styles, Samoa Joe, Suicide, Christopher Daniels, Petey Williams, Scott Steiner, and of course that Steiner Math promo. Did I say Petey Williams? But guys like them. and also Booker T and Christian Cage as well, because they were on TNA at some points. But that's how I kind of got my little taste for wrestling. And then I'd say it was about 2006 to 2008 I kind of watched it, if I was to put a time frame on it. I didn't really watch it through 2009 because the TNA game came out, and I always remember this because me and my brother never played story modes. We always played split screen, and obviously the SmackDown vs Raw games were so easy to play, and then we got to TNA and we were like, what the hell is this? The game, in my opinion, that is one of the worst wrestling games of all time. The only good thing about it was the story mode and the graphics. Apart from that, dead game. Dead game. The gameplay mechanics were stupid. The way you activated finishers was dead. Okay, and that kind of made me fall out of love with TNA. So then I started to watch a lot of WWE. I forgot about Kurt Angle. I knew Kurt Angle as a TNA guy. That's and the main event mafia. Who? Oh my god. The main event mafia that's a memory and a half. I just dug up a hardcore memory then. The main event, AJ, Ric Flair, come on. But yeah, so obviously, you know, I was a TNA guy, and it wasn't until about, I'd say, beginning of the PG era is where I started to be on WWE. So that's when you had the birth of CM Punk because of ECW. You had Mike Adamle as Raw General Manager. Jesus Christ. Oh, jeez, that's another memory. You had Mike Adamle as Raw General Manager. You had the SmackDown 6. Well, you had remnants of the SmackDown 6. You had Undertaker, Edge, Ray. Who else was on there? Who else was like around that time? You had Brian Kendrick and Paul London. You had Brian Kendrick and Paul London. You had MVP, who I could not stand. Jeff Hardy winning the WWE Championship. You had the Championship Scramble match. Triple H was being a beast. Shawn Michaels was having main event match after main event match after main event match. Look at the match he had with Chris Jericho. That feud was absolutely chef's kiss. You had, for me, the reason why the Intercontinental Championship was my favourite championship, because of guys like John Morrison winning it. You had guys like Chris Jericho, Christian winning it. Also in that period of time, for me growing up, I used to watch quite a bit of ECW, and I liked ECW because I was sick and tired of seeing, you know, the John Cenas run through everyone. I was sick and tired of, you know, people like that, the Randy Ortons kind of, you know, running the scene. So I wanted to check out the people who I don't normally see, and that's when I got ECW, which I know it may not have been like the original ECW. For me, seeing somebody like Christian be the top guy, for me was like, yeah, I like that. Seeing guys like Jack Swagger before he came into the main roster and winning the Money in the Bank. I got to see Matt Hardy be a top guy. I got to see a bunch of different stuff. I got to see Colin Delaney. Who remembers Colin Delaney? That is a deep pull. Again, another deep memory. But again, that was me growing up from wrestling. Also, you got to see a bunch of guys who were in the system before, and they've gone on to Japan and Ring of Honor and places like that, become megastars and come to AEW. Guys like Vance Archer, or Lance Archer as he's now known. But again, for me, growing up in that kind of space and time was just so good. And everybody's seen, you know, the Twitter picture of the SmackDown roster in 2008 being overplayed. But then obviously we skip forward a few years. Obviously then ECW kind of died and NXT was born. Now obviously NXT, for those of you who don't know, was a lot different back in the day. It was a reality show. The first season was Daniel Bryan, Wade Barrett, Ryback, Michael Tarver, David Otunga. Who else was in there? Justin Gabriel, Heath Slater, and Darren Young. And basically the premise of the show was these 8 WWE superstars who were training in FCW at the time, but then they got to NXT. these guys would have the pros, which are actual WWE superstars, because I'll always remember the banger of a match Chris Jericho and Daniel Bryan had on the first night of NXT. If you think NXT sucks, watch that match. That match is the best match out of any, like the early NXT, the reality show NXT. That is the best match, and it was on the first night. But yeah, so that obviously was a reality show that had to do a bunch of different challenges. Promos, things like that, which was kind of like, you know, it was cool. You know, as a 10-year-old kind of watching it, it was kind of, but you know, we saw far better. And then, if we want to talk about using the talent you have to make them better in NXT, we had the birth of the Nexus, which is my favorite WWE moment of all time. This is me growing up through the eyes of wrestling. So just imagine this, set the scene for you. The year is 2010. Wade Barrett's just being he won NXT. Not the NXT Championship, because that didn't come until about Seth Rollins, which was about 2012 or something. But obviously, the NXT he won the first season of NXT. And then the next night on Raw, everybody from NXT who was in that, the rookies who were in NXT came to Raw, invaded Raw, beat the crap out of everybody there. Cena got laid to waste, Vince McMahon got laid to waste, Daniel Bryan got fired for choking Jason Roberts with a tie. Like, oh, it was the best thing I've ever seen on WWE television. To have these guys who you were like, you know, they may do a bit here and there, but they came with a purpose and they were immediately a threat. Like that. Until John Cena buried them. But anyways, that's neither here or there. Of course, growing up watching wrestling, John Cena was the top guy. He ruined so many careers. He ruined so many careers. Let's see, Ray, Wade, Alex Riley, like that. Yo, look at the stories on the internet. There are so many different stories about how John Cena just ran through the competition, and like, for instance, him burying the Nexus was his idea, which didn't work. Of course, then we skip a year into 2011, where again I'm still a teenager at this point, and of course we have the infamous CM Punk Pride Bomb. And for me, CM Punk was a hero because he said things which nobody had the courage to say, and he said it with chest as well. It wasn't like, you know, I like the company Vince McMahon goes. He was like, no, I think the company will be better after Vince McMahon's dead. And he said a lot of things in that small space of time that are true to this day, right, which is still relevant to this day about the wrestling world and how the wrestling world is. So, like him or hate him, I think CM Punk in that kind of space and time is just in terms of modern WWE as well, in modern WWE, like, just absolutely nuts. It's an insane moment. And then obviously growing up, basically I got to a point where I stopped watching wrestling, which was I was about 15 or 16, and that was about mid-2012. I wasn't enjoying NXT as much. I liked Seth Rollins as champion, but then after he lost it, I kind of lost interest in NXT, and then Raw and SmackDown were kind of dull. I mean, I'd say I stopped watching it when the Shield were getting really good, put it that way. So that means I missed out on Daniel Bryan having the Yes Movement. I missed out on the Wyatt family. I missed out on Brock Lesnar squashing John Cena. I missed out on a whole load of things, because again, like, at that point wrestling wasn't really interesting to me until about the end of 2015. I started picking things back up again, and I've seen these new guys. I see Adam Rose. I see guys like Bo Dallas and Big E at the time, and Xavier Woods at the time. You know, again, I looked at, you know, people, and I saw Dean Ambrose was completely different. Roman was a bit the same, but Rollins was completely different. You know, the Authority was a thing, and I'm coming back into this with new eyes, and then I peep back to NXT, and I was completely astounded by how much it had changed. No longer was it this reality TV show or a place for, or a little place for people to do a little fight and gone. No, it was a main roster from then. I don't even care. When that, for me, what honestly, I'm not even joking, and I know I'm stopping my words here, but for me, the day I got back into wrestling was early 2016, and Sami Zayn versus Shinsuke Nakamura. That was like, I was like, okay, now I'm a wrestling fan again. And then the rest is history. I keep tabs with Ring of Honor a little bit. Again, I'm mainly a WWE guy. That's not to say I don't support AEW. I love AEW. I prefer to watch WWE, but I still keep tabs with AEW because I think they're brilliant. Impact had lost its way at the time. Also, you look at guys like NWA are back, and this should be a great time for wrestling, because when I was growing up, it was either WWE or bust. You couldn't make your name anywhere else. That was it. But now you're seeing people make their names in Japan. You're seeing people make their names in Ring of Honor, AEW, all these different promotions. Right now is the best time to be a wrestler or a wrestling fan, because there are so much more. There's so much more. You know what I mean? Look at the guys like Pro Wrestling Eve and Stardom. If you told me, like, 5 or 10 years ago that women's wrestling would be the hottest thing in wrestling today, and I don't mean that because, you know, the bodies and stuff, I mean in terms of wrestling talent. If you told me that women would be the main event of WrestleMania, I'd be like, but again, to see how wrestling's changed from me laying fresh eyes on the product to how wrestling is now, and it is totally cool. I think, again, right now is the best time to be a wrestler or to be a wrestling fan, because there are so much more. Yes, as in nostalgia, the old days were great, but for now, I can't think of a better time for wrestling. I can't think of a better time. I mean, yeah, we took a bit of a hit this year, don't get me wrong. You know, 2020's hit you sucked. But in terms of wrestling and wrestling quality as well, and wrestling creativity, you know, it's been better than ever. But again, I digress. That's what it was like for me growing up in wrestling. That's kind of my timeline to me getting into wrestling, sticking with wrestling. But yeah, and then look at me now. I'm training to be a wrestler. Who'd have thought? Who would have thought? But anyways, that's going to do it for this video. If you do like this video, you want to see some more, leave a like, comment, subscribe. I would love to see you guys in the comments with your feedback. What was it like growing up for you guys? Some of you guys are from the Attitude Era. Some of you guys are from the New Generation era. Some of you guys are from the Ruthless Aggression era. You know, let me know what it was like growing up for you in wrestling. I'd like to see what you guys have to say. But without further ado, I'll see you guys next time in another video. Take care. Bye now.